In today's episode, we'll be following Sam Trickett on Party Poker Big Game, a cash game with blinds of 25 and 50 pounds and with a straddle of 100 pounds. In this hand, David Pete raises pre-flop to 300. He gets one caller and Trickett from the big calls. Sam flopped middle pair on a board with a flush and straight draw. Now Sam knows that there's a big possibility that if he's not beat right now, the action will stop or slow, or he might be beat with most of the cards to come on the turn, like any 8, 7, 3, or even any spade or over cards besides a king. So if all the players in the hand check on the flop, he's probably going to get beat on the turn. In addition, if David Pete bets and gets a call from the other opponent, it will be hard for Sam to call because on the turn, as mentioned, he's probably going to be beat. This is why he decided to lead out and win the hand right now. Sam bets 1100, which is more than a pot-sized bet. And by that bet, he's trying to represent a hand like a pair with a straight draw, a flush draw, just a pair, or even two pair. In most cases, if he has a set or a straight, he'll probably bet less or check, and his opponents know it. David Pete calls. Now bear in mind that there's another opponent behind Pete, so if he had a big hand like a big overpair or even a flush draw, he might raise. By only calling his bet, Sam knows that Pete doesn't have a big hand. On the turn, a queen of clubs shows up, and it's Sam's turn to act. Sam is now wondering what kind of cards could David Pete have to only call on the flop. The logical answer is that it looks like it's kind of a no-spade draw, since if he has two overs with no spades, he's probably not going to call, especially when there's another player behind him. Also, as I mentioned, if he has an overpair or two overs with a flush draw, there's a big chance he'll raise, which he didn't. So it seems like the turn didn't help Pete since none of the draws show up, and in most cases Sam can continue betting here, and he's already representing a decent hand from the flop. But Sam checks, and the question now is why? It seems that because Sam doesn't have position and he doesn't want to make the pot big with just a pair of fives, it's safer for him to check call instead of betting and facing a possible raise. By checking behind him on the turn, Sam knows now that Pete doesn't have a queen because if he was calling with two overs that included one queen, which it doesn't look like, he'll probably go ahead and bet. Now on the river, a jack of clubs shows up, and Sam knows that he probably has the best hand since once again no draw shows up. This is why checking and hoping that Pete is bluffing is not a good option, because both players know now that unless there's a trap from Pete, he doesn't have a big hand and Sam will call his bet, so Pete probably isn't going to bluff. Now the question is how much to bet. 2,950 looks like too much if Sam has a hand and wants to get called. 2,350 looks also a bit high for the same reason, but it's still a reasonable amount to bet. But 1,750 looks like the right amount to bet. Sam bets 1,750 and surprisingly Pete raises to 8,000. So now the question is, what cards could he raise with? If he had pocket jacks, he'll probably raise on the flop or at least bet on the turn. If he had two pair on the flop, he'll probably raise and bet on the turn. If he has cards that contain a queen, he'll bet on the turn when the queen showed up. But he checked on the turn, and this is why a raise isn't making any sense, because if he has a jack, he'll probably call instead of raising. In addition, Sam probably knows that Pete is using his bet to raise, because a raise has a bigger impact than a bet, and again, this raise doesn't make any sense. So Sam called.